What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is story time. I bought another DeLorean. I don't know how it happened, but I got another one. So for that reason, we're gonna take a little break from our 81 DeLorean build with the LS swap, and we're gonna share our journey buying this other DeLorean that we have really cool plans for. So a lot of these cars you find word of mouth. There's only 10,000 DeLoreans that were ever built, 10 and change maybe, and only about 9,000 of them exist still. So finding a car is not always the easiest thing. And I'm finding the more and more I deal with these cars, the more and more they're kind of finding me. So with this particular car, buddy of mine, Ricky, I ended up doing a full turbo system for him with a Garrett turbo on his 69 Camaro. And his tow truck driver came and saw all the DeLoreans and said, I know someone who has one of these cars. I said, really? Do they want to sell it? Like, what's the deal with it? He said, well, she's an older woman, she's a widow, it was her husband's car, and it was his pride and joy, and it's just been sitting in her garage. I'm not really sure what she wants to do with it. So I got her number, gave her a call, and it turns out she was interested in selling the car. Now, this car's been sitting in her garage for over 6 years. Unfortunately, her husband passed away. He loved this car. So after he died, she just kind of left it in the garage. So the car hasn't ran in a while. It's going to need probably the entire fuel system gone through. The stainless steel is perfect. The paint is pretty much perfect. The nose needs a little bit of work, but all in all, it's in great shape. The pictures did not do the car justice because when I saw it in person, I was amazed at how much of a time capsule this thing was, and I really couldn't pass up on it. These cars are skyrocketing in value right now, and soon they're going to be in Ferrari prices, and I'm not going to be able to touch them, and a lot of people aren't either. So I jumped on it. We brought it back to the shop. The interior is beautiful. The engine bay is all there. There's nothing that's been removed. A lot of these cars have lived really long lives, and this one was definitely a survivor. So our plans for this car is to show you guys exactly what to expect when buying a Barnfind DeLorean. All right, so a lot of you guys must be wondering, how am I going to find parts for this thing to get it to run? It's so rare. Well, when the DeLorean Motor Company originally went out of business, the new DeLorean Motor Company, which now exists in Houston, Texas, which is owned by a gentleman named Stephen Wynn, they bought all of the parts and all of the inventory that was left over for all the cars that were originally going to be produced in 83, 84, and 85. They have a gigantic warehouse full of so many DeLorean parts you can't even imagine. A lot of them are new old stock, they call them, and a lot of them are brand new. For our car, for the fuel system, they have developed all brand new fuel lines, fuel pump, all updated systems for the car in order to run modern fuel. We're also going to be buttoning up the interior, making it a little nicer with the headliner, and addressing some of the paint and also some of the lighting. So let's get this thing on the lift and see what we got to do. All right, guys, we got the car in the air and I'm seeing it for the first time. This was the one part that I was a little nervous about because at the lady's house, I wasn't able to look underneath it. I just kind of glanced at it. So this is the first time I'm taking a look at it and seeing exactly what issues we have and what we have to fix. And I'm pleasantly surprised. So at the front here, we have our radiator, and rust really usually attaches itself here at the front of these horns on the chassis. We can see a little bit right here. This is not going to be a huge deal. This most likely was probably from people like tying it down on a flatbed or something like that. We have some leakage over here. It might be from the brakes, but I think the tie rod is pretty much shot. So we'll have a new steering rack put in with new tie rod ends for that. One of the problems with these cars is this is the gas tank cover. So these bolts all the way around the perimeter hold this plate on, which then hold in the gas tank, which is shaped like a Dorito. So this triangular plastic gas tank usually creates moisture when the water gets up in there. So when you're driving down the road, you get water up, it sits in there, and this whole thing rusts out. This one looks like it's in almost perfect shape. So we're just gonna do some degreaser, clean it up. We have no damage on the fiberglass on the floorboards. So this car was probably flat-bedded everywhere it went. There's no damage there, so this is pretty awesome. Sometimes you'll get gashes if you like run over something on the highway or something like that. Our coolant lines are all intact. Everything's got, you know, typical 80s layer of grime and dust and grease. That's not a huge deal. We'll be able to clean that up. Automatic cars, they do leak. They all leak. It's just something they do. It's almost like a Norton motorcycle. leak transmission fluid. So I'm not surprised at all to see a little bit of buildup on the bottom side of the transmission case. The pan itself is completely dry, which is great. So we'll end up doing a nice degreaser on this. Probably reseal the drain plug. There's a little O-ring that goes in there that might cause some leaking. But the boots for our half shafts look like they're in great shape. There's some surface rust on the actual half shaft itself. We'll be able to clean that up, wire brush it. And we go back here to the engine. Our aluminum oil pan is completely unscathed. A lot of the time you'll have some gashes and some scratches in this. I've even seen people lift it from this point and crack it. So this is all looking great. So I'm super excited about how this thing turned out. This is just going to be a little bit of elbow grease to make the bottom side of this car look pretty much perfect again. And then we'll be able to shift our focus to the fuel system. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to get our cover plate off, drop our gas tank, and get all the old fuel out of the system to make sure we're starting from scratch when we replace everything up top. All right guys, we have our access panel taken off, and as you can see, this is the factory fuel pump and sending unit. This thing is 100% seized. It probably doesn't work anymore, so we're gonna yank that out. What we're going to do is we're gonna take the actual fuel pump from our V8 car. This is the setup that was in this car. I have all the receipts from the original owner. This has the brand new DeLorean Motor Company fuel pump. It's all upgraded with new fuel lines, and it also has this regulator here to control the actual pump. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna yank this out, see how it looks, probably clean it up, and then put it in the other car. All right, guys. As you can see, it's got no gas in it. It's barely got a thimble in there. So that's perfect for storing cars, and it's gonna make it a lot easier on us to be able to drop the tank and do what we have to do to it. All right, so now that we have the fuel pump, fill line, and the vent line, and the sending unit all unplugged up top, what we're gonna do is remove this panel here, and the gas tank literally just wedges up in there. There's no straps or bolts beyond that. So once you remove this panel, then we'll drop the gas tank down. We'll be able to drain it, clean it out, and throw the new pump in from our other car. Look at that. 6/18/81, VIN 09, like a 2. See that? That's cool. I guess that was their way of marking where the gas tanks go. Yeah, it's all brake fluid. Look at that master cylinder. Yeah, I'll have to strip all that down and paint it before we put the gas tank back in. All right, so here's a little taster as to what the fuel looked like in there. Pretty brown. A lot of sludge was at the bottom of the tank. So what we ended up doing is we went ahead and ran some acetone through the tank. Got her all spick and span. Look at that. Clean as a whistle. All right, guys, we got some goodies from DMC Houston. As I said in the beginning of the episode, DeLorean is alive and well, so I wanted to document to you guys what you can get from them and what parts they have available. So for our car, there's some odds and ends as far as some maintenance pieces we want, but also something really cool that I wanted to do for the car, just to give it that nice final touch for the next owner. So what we got for the DeLorean, and this is all brand new, we got spark plug wires, we got brand new spark plugs, we got our cap. Sometimes they have new old stock, which is called NOS parts, which is literally a brand new part from 1981 that was never put on a car. So these look like brand new parts, so this is gonna be good to get the car running. I also got a brand new key blank. I don't know if you can see from that angle, but our car came with what looks like a house key. So this nice new key blank, I'm going to get this cut, and it's going to give the car a nice new feel. Also in the engine bay, what happens on top of the airbox, you have this cool DeLorean Motor Company badge that just gets faded from the sun and from different, degreasing it and washing it a million times. So we're going to redo the airbox, put a fresh logo on there, really make the engine bay pop. We also got a brand new air filter for the DeLorean. This will fit inside of the actual factory airbox, so I don't have to modify anything with that. And we also, for the mechanical fuel injection system, got a brand new fuel filter, a must, and we got all these cool stainless steel braided lines. Now, the factory K-tronic fuel injection system comes with these rubber lines in the back that burst. So they burst at the fittings when they got dry rotted. And if you look online, a lot of DeLoreans burnt to the ground because of this system. We also went one step further, got new hold downs for the actual fuel injectors themselves. So these are Bosch fuel injectors. They're just kind of look like little nozzles. These hold them down. We got all new brass bushings and all stainless steel banjo bolts. So we're replacing everything. We also got for the front end a brand new steering rack, and this is going to allow us to be able to get the front end riding a lot nicer and get it aligned, because the passenger side front has a really bad wobble in it. So we'll probably address this first before we get into the fuel system and get the gas tank back in the car. Alright guys, we have our 81 flip car in the air, and I just wanted to go over some things that we've done to it. So we're going through the brake system right now, and we're also doing all the detail work inside of the wheel wells, as well as the engine bay. Now, this thing's been sitting for 6 years, and we knew that we were going to have some issues with the fuel system, but what we realized when we were loading it on the flatbed, the front brakes were completely seized. So we switched it out with these zinc-plated newer versions from DMC Houston. These are going to be able to basically be an upgrade version. All the seals inside for the pistons are all brand new, nothing's dry rotted, and as you can see, nothing's dragging, so we're good to go on that front. We also saw that the AC system is brand new, so we're not going to mess with that, and we've done a lot of detail work inside here to make it look nice and brand new for the next customer. We did the same on the back side too. We changed all 4 calipers. Originally I wanted to just do the front, but the rears were a little bit janky as well, so we went ahead and did that. We detailed the springs, we did all of the suspension arms, got everything degreased and looking really nice. Our new booster in there, our new master that's zinc plated, and we also fixed the surface rust that was left over from the leak from the brakes. So this should tidy everything up. I wanted to get this all done before we went ahead and put the gas tank back in with the new fuel pump. Gas tank is in. As you can see, we just wedged it in there. It's just literally just sitting in between the frame rails. So now what we get to do is put the plate back in. It's just literally just, I think it's like 2 16 gauge pieces of metal that they welded together, and then they have the holes and everything's tapped down the frame rails. So it slides in the front, gets lifted up, and then we have like 15 screws we have to put in. So let's put that plate in now. Alright, we got our cover plate in. As you can see, it makes the bottom of the car completely flat, which is really cool for aerodynamics. It's like an old Testarossa. So now that we have the tank in, and we have our underplate in, our steering rack is in, we've got our brakes on, everything under the car is pretty much where we want it. We're going to go ahead and lower this thing down on the ground. We're going to get in the frunk, finish up that area up there, and then get in the engine bay, and then hopefully we can throw some fuel in this thing and start it up. Alright guys, now we're digging into our mechanical fuel injection system. As you can see, this thing is very complicated. There are over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 fuel lines on this system going in and out of this manifold here, which controls the fuel flow and fuel feed and return, as well as cold start, warm up, all this nonsense. It's just crazy to think that this was cutting edge before electronic fuel injection came out. So what we're gonna do is, originally I wanted to just change out the fuel line, but I think I wanna take this manifold apart and actually clean it out, because the fuel has been sitting inside there and it's probably all gunked up and turned into like yellow goo. I also want to paint a lot of these parts and make them look fresh, because this is going to be like the detailed area of the engine bay when you pop the trunk. So what I'm doing now is removing the lines that actually connect the fuel distribution manifold to the actual car, and then I'm going to leave the lines to the injectors. Actually, I'm just going to remove everything just to get everything out of my way. So I'm going to be removing all the lines, getting those in the garbage. We'll be removing everything to do with the fuel system, and then we'll get it over to the bench and be able to blast everything out with some brake clean, get as much of it cleaned out as I can. And I'm also going to be inspecting the injectors as well when I pull it apart. This car's got super low miles, so it shouldn't be too bad, but it has been sitting for a while. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this all apart and see where we can go from there. All right, real quick on the fuel distributor. I didn't really want to make a tutorial on how to rebuild one of these or all that jazz. I just want to show you guys like the process as to what we're doing. So this guy goes together like so, as you can see. Well, more like this probably. And you have your feed line coming in. Can't remember which one is which. Feed line coming in, this guy fills up with fuel and basically has fuel pressure. You have different lines going to your cold start and to your regulator and all this stuff. Inside of this thing, you have this mesh screen where the fuel kind of sits and it gets distributed to all 6 cylinders. Now as this plunger goes down and detects more air, this little guy right here pushes up on this plunger, which goes inside of here. And this allows it to be able to adjust the fuel flow. Now, not like this. Now, what happens is the fuel is able to be, it increases the pressure as this thing goes in and out of this orifice right here. So it's allowing the fuel to go into these slots. Now, the more open it is, the more fuel pressure you have until you're wide open throttle, and then it's all of the pressure that's in the system feeding the engine. And then you have this guy right here that acts as a gasket between the two. I'm not 100% how this works, honestly. This is a very layman's description on how it works. If any of you guys are K-tronic experts, leave a comment in the comment section below. Maybe there's obviously more for me to learn. So, but for right now, I'm going to put this thing right back the way it was. The only thing I could see was on this guy right here, which I think is the fuel pressure regulator doodad, which actually threads in there and allows the fuel pressure to go up and down. There's an O-ring on the end of it that was completely shot. The rest of these O-rings look really good. They're not dry rotted, they're soft, they're not hard. I think the system was rebuilt recently because you know, the guy who owned this car, it was his pride and joy, and I could tell that the fuel system, everything was definitely gone into. Plus this guy right here I've seen on other websites or other videos where these are like completely like destroyed, like really, really bad. So this thing actually looks pretty decent, so I'm gonna reuse it. Other than that, we're gonna go from there. I'm gonna replace this O-ring on this end, reassemble everything, give this a fresh paint job along with the other pieces, and we'll be able to get this all back together. All right, so we have our fuel manifold all put back together. We have this all detailed. While I had it apart, guys, went ahead and threw a fresh coat of aluminum paint on there, and then I painted the bolts and hardware black so we don't have any rust issues in the future. We also went ahead and shot the intake manifold the same silver. This is like an aluminized paint you can get at like pretty much any store. This Alumiblast. It just freshens up your cast finishes really nice. So now that we got this thing rebuilt, we went ahead and put new O-rings in it, cleaned up all of the orifices, got all the junky fuel out of it. This thing should be working properly. So we're gonna go ahead and bolt this back in position like this, and then we'll go ahead and reinstall this back into the DeLorean and finish up all the fuel lines and all the installation of all the new parts for the fuel system. So we go ahead and bolt this back together and get back over to the engine bay. Alright guys, so we got our valve covers all sealed up, spark plugs are done, wires are done, rotor and cap is done. We refreshed the engine bay, got all the paint work done, tidied up the wires, got some more items taken care of with that. Now we're ready to put the intake manifold back in. Alright guys, so we got the motor all painted, the intake manifold is back on. As you can see, we have everything pretty much ready to go for our manifold. Now, we went ahead and we pulled this back apart, rebuilding our mechanical fuel injection distributor. I was a little iffy about some of the O-rings and the baffle that goes between the two manifolds, and I just wanted to make sure it was perfect. So we went ahead and pulled that apart and changed all the O-rings and all the parts to make sure everything was good to go on that. Put everything back together. We have our sensor back on here for our throttle. We got pretty much as we can get bolted onto this manifold as we could. It's all nice and painted, as you can see. So we're gonna slide this thing right underneath this wiring harness. I'm not super happy about how DeLorean ran these from the factory, but there's not a whole lot I could do with this right now. We'll hook our throttle linkage back up. We'll hook all this back up, and then we'll go ahead and start routing all of our brand new mechanical fuel injection lines. Alright, so it's going down to the crunch time. We're about to start up the DeLorean for the first time after sitting for 6 years. And I'm just really nervous because I don't know if it's going to give me any issues or anything, because I've never messed around with mechanical fuel injection before. But just a little rundown of what we got. So I've gone through, I've traced these hoses a million times, making sure they're all routed correctly. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then same on this side. The only thing that was like iffy was this cold start injector, making sure that was the right spot. Other than that, I've retraced the wiring, got everything plugged in. All the plugs are like stuff you get from like the hardware store. So it's like the butt ends. So it's like, I don't know, it's crazy. So we got it all plugged in, we got everything good. I didn't adjust the throttle, so I'm not sure what it's gonna do with that. Yeah, just need to put some gas in it. So we're gonna go ahead and put fuel in it now, cycle it a couple times. Probably gonna put it up in the air, make sure I don't have any leaks with the key on, with fuel pressure. And then we're gonna go ahead and fire this thing up and see what it does. So we're gonna put some fuel in now and see what happens. It's not one part I like about DeLoreans. It's got the fuel fill right here. So this freshly painted deck lid that I have, if I spill any gas on it, then it's on me. So let's see if it'll start. Oh my God. It's running! It's running! Look at that! Runs like a top! Oh my God! Feels so good to get a win. Oh man! Woo! Running at 900 RPM. It's searching a little bit. It probably just needs to be ran, honestly. All right, I'm gonna kill it before we all die. Oh, it runs! That is so cool. 6 years. All right, guys, super excited, obviously, as you can see from the reaction of that first startup of this car over the past 6 years of it just sitting in the garage in Miami. I really did not have full confidence in my abilities of working with the K-tronic with that mechanical fuel injection system. But like everything in life, it's not as scary as you might think unless you just try it. So we went ahead and got this thing all buttoned up. I have to do an oil change on it. I'm gonna throw a fresh set of tires on it. And next episode, we're gonna be taking this thing on its maiden voyage, as well as jumping back on our V8 project that we have for the channel. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.